Ngozi Talk Show's family is Nomsa here at Ngozi Talk Show's Find Your Voice, Lead from Within. With me today, I have Kamal Ama. How are you, Kamal?
Hi Nomsa, how are you? Good to be here as always.
Good, good, good. Good to have you today. I'm sure our audience love to have you.
Thank you.
How's your mom and your dad?
Mom is wonderful, starting a lot of activities. She's giving love to herself finally, as I have been speaking to her, and my dad as well, and everybody's fine. How is everything on your end? Your
Yeah,
family?
everybody's fine. My end is half term here, so if you guys hear the kids, don't be surprised. They're very quiet at the moment. So yeah, all is good. So let's go into the topic. So the topic today is how to break painful relationship patterns. Breaking painful relationship patterns can be a very challenging but
Mm,
crucial process for personal growth, well-being. So today we're going to share some tips so that you guys can use them in your personal life. If you're
mm.
going through challenges or you're going through painful um, relationship patterns, you can use that. So what do you think about the topic, Kamal?
Look, it's an important topic, and of course, I'm biased, but as most of our topics are important, uh, what I want to say it's a lot of people are struggling with toxic relationships or relationships that don't serve them, and so bringing this on the table is quite good. I mean, these relationships don't necessarily mean um, a partner in your life, but it could mean siblings, it could mean parents, it could mean family members, but it also can mean an unhealthy relationship with yourself. So the topic is quite broad in its sense, and at the same time important to tackle to help our audience and those that are listening to us on how to, I'm going to say it as crudely as possible, get rid of these people that are making us unhappy with ourselves.
During the video. Yeah, I agree with you, Kamal, when you say this topic is broadly, because we could have in our personal lives, we could have a toxic relationship, or simply in our romantic relationship, or even at work, in our careers, we could have a toxic relationship where people don't really know how to deal with it. So this topic is very, very, very important. For me, I'll say if you're going through pain and you have these patterns that keep showing up in a relationship that are really negative, sometimes it could be the attachment from your childhood that keeps coming up and keeps showing up, or sometimes it could be self-forgiveness, old life. So when I talk about the self-forgiveness, old life is where I couldn't forgive those who hurt me in the past. And then if you're still holding that, it can show up and that can attract the same pattern to keep showing up and keep showing up. Or sometimes people say, I hate myself for the choices that I've made. And when you have that mindset attitude, it affects the relationship where you are in because you feel that you have to put up with problems. You feel that you have to put up with people that are treating you bad. You have to forgive them and let them keep coming in and taking advantage of you because to you, is that what you're familiar with? You're not really familiar with having joy and living life to the fulfillment. Being hurt by people is what you know. So sometimes it's nice to actually forgive yourself and just move on and try the other side, how it looks like, the side of being fulfilled, the side of loving yourself and then choosing yourself and not letting everyone enter your life and taking advantage. I'm not saying guys go around and judging people, because I've seen people, like mostly in my environment, where people get this personal development the wrong way, where they judge people. I don't know if you have ever been in that situation, Kamal, where you find yourself being judged before. What are you doing?
No, it's my camera, but I mean, people judge all they want, just to put it easy. But I don't care if people judge me. I'm not here. They're not my judge of character. They are not my judge of my behaviors. They are not the judge of how I'm going to live my life. Of course, I used to do it as a teenager, and we all go through that process because we want to be accepted by others. And so we fall into patterns of, like you mentioned, giving love and giving attention to people that keep us included, to people that we think are good for us. And at the end of the day, it's your mental health and it's your well-being that is at play. And to be fair, the sooner you realize people that you are attached to because you feel good about yourself being around them are not healthy for you, the simpler your life will be. And in essence, what I'm trying to say is that there's no place for anyone in this world to judge you. And so if people judge you, I would do as the Chinese proverb says, smile, it confuses your enemy. And so smile at anyone, whether they judge you or not, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's how you judge yourself that makes a difference in your development and how you see yourself. And again, being a judge on your own character, on your own personality, and on how you behave doesn't mean you have to judge yourself with a whip, but it means to be fair with yourself. That's what I'm thinking when one talks about judgment from others and acceptance.
I love that when you say we shouldn't worry about what people think, because at the end of the day, it is our journey, it is our destination, and it is our lives. So we have to make a decision based on knowing our story and knowing what we are going through when it comes to life. Whatever the situation you go through, you find yourself. And also, mindfulness is very, very important. Um, and also getting rid of bitterness that got hold over me. Some people, they do that. They get into a situation where they don't want to let it go. They just hold on to bitterness. And also, if things go wrong, or if things don't go their way, they'll blame the people that were not there for them and the mistakes that came along the way. And that affects your relationship. It becomes a stagnation. It becomes everything that is holding, and then you have to break the chains of that relationship. Or sometimes, like I said before, when all those things, if you're holding bitterness, or simply you're not holding bitterness, but you don't know how to live this life of freedom where you put you first. So mindfulness, that's where the mindfulness comes in, self-acceptance, when you fully accept yourself for who you are as a person. Unapologetic, and live the life that God created you to live, instead of living a fake life where you enter a relationship, date somebody, and they treat you bad. And then you are like, oh, wow, I have to be patient. There's this thing where some other cultures come out. I don't know in the Egyptian culture where they exist, where when somebody is in an abusive relationship, they say, be patient. That's what marriage is about. it happens in Africa, in my culture as well. When people go through pain, you go and tell your parents, they'll be like, be patient. But my parents don't do that. They will not tolerate their child being abused. It's
Look,
like a non.
there's a very big difference between being patient for certain things and uh, and breaking patterns of abuse. And no matter what the culture, you will always have these, I'm going to say pioneers or people that think a little bit outside of the box and refuse to adhere to social norms and cultural beliefs because they have their own cultural beliefs, their own traditional beliefs, their own view of the world that might be a little bit different. I mean, in psychology, you have something called the tall poppy syndrome. So if you think of the poppies as the flowers, right? Whenever there's a poppy that exceeds that, they cut it off so everybody is the same. And that is what the cultural norm does to us, cultural understanding, societal norms. So if you are one of those people that decides to get out of the norm, you will always be looked upon as somebody different. Now, from their perspective, you're different, but from your perspective, yes, you also perhaps realize it, but you at the same time want to be different because you do not want to live this sort of life. And it is absolutely your right. Now, of course, there is a threshold where you can be abusive to others and be disrespectful, contra knowing your limits and having boundaries where you decide what is good and healthy for yourself without impacting or harming anyone else. The other thing that I want to mention about patience in relationships, there are certain things one can be patient about. Somebody going through a midlife crisis, whether it's a man or a woman, somebody going through a change of career, somebody going through a growth period, intellectual, spiritual, money crisis. All of these are things that make you stronger if you decide to grow together and understand these factors. However, I've said it before many times, and I'll still keep on saying it. In a relationship, if one of the partners decides to grow spiritually, mentally, and just expand their mind more than the other, and the other one gets stagnant, at that stage, relationships become difficult to maintain, and no matter how much patience you put into that frame, there's no point. The same thing applies to cultures or people that say you have to stay in a marriage because you will break up the kids. Yes, there is from a psychological perspective, there is a major impact on the children. I agree. However, the children will be impacted worsely if they realize and see, which they all see, that the parents are treating each other in an abusive way, in an unhealthy way, in a way that prevents growth of the children, right? A dysfunctional family. I see and have seen dysfunctional families, and it doesn't help the children. It's easier and better for the parents actually to get divorced, separated, so that the children can grow in a healthy environment on either side. Now, I'm not saying divorce is the solution or separation is the solution. I'm saying some people are better off not being with each other. And again, this comes from the first part of a relationship where you come to an agreement. A relationship, it's a partnership, right? That means there are agreements that you have to set your foot down, whether you want it or the partner wants it. There is compromise if you agree to it. Certain things you might not compromise about, and that is okay. This is the whole concept of breaking that pattern. Now, if you're in an abusive relationship, get out. What is the worst that can happen? Think about the worst that can happen. Imagine it. And still get out. There is always a choice. People fear for their lives. People fear for their children. People fear for their relationships. People fear for their businesses when they're in a relationship. At the end of the day, all of that doesn't matter. What matters is whether you are willing to live up to that abuse and accept it for the rest of your life or not. Patience in abusive situations has nothing to do. I mean, this is why we're talking about these, right? People that are patient in relationships that are abusive because they're worried that the partner will take the kids and leave. Take the kids and leave yourself. Get out of this relationship. I know it's very difficult. I've seen it, and I know it's not easy. There is a grip when it comes to these type of relationships, a mental, psychological grip that keeps people in abusive relationships due to trauma, due to fear, due to manipulative or Machiavellian tactics. Many reasons. There's always a choice. And so I've said it before, but I'd rather be happy on my own than be miserable in a relationship. Even if I have to say alone for, I don't know, a decade or more, just to stay happy and not be in a miserable relationship, I would rather be alone. I enjoy being alone. I don't know about you or others, but I love being alone. I love me. I want me to be well. I want me to be happy. I want me to be in a good relationship with myself so that I can give that love and that good relationship to my children and to the people that I love and I care about. Because if I don't love me, and if I stay in an abusive or unhealthy relationship, unfortunately, the kids and the people that I love around me will not get the best of me. They will get the worst of me. So that's what I have to say about that.
I love that, Kamal, when you say when you're single. I think I was talking about it one of the show a few weeks ago, saying if you're single, enjoy being single. There's no point in whining and saying I'm bored, and because that time you never get it back. Living on your own, just enjoy that moment until you find somebody to live with. And if you're not happy, you're like, well, okay, I'm not happy in this relationship, being on my own. Gracefully be happy, find somebody else that you can share your life with. But that moment, that present moment where you are single, I just love it. Come out when you say I'm happy with myself, and that I think is a joy. When somebody says that I'm happy, it means that person when they enter your life. Can I see your jumper? Why have you got green on your jumper? What is that?
This is my favorite anime, Dragon Ball Z. I'm not
Ah,
any marketing, but Dragon Ball Z is the anime that I grew up with when I was like 8, 9, and for me, this is the top anime in the world. And so I got a few stash of Dragon Ball Z.
you're such a baby.
I am.
Yeah, yeah, just enjoy it. Yeah, I love it when you say enjoy it, and I love it when you talk about patience because the relationship comes with its own challenges. You mentioned finances and all these different things that show up in a relationship. Be patient about it, and I always say to people when you face financial problems because sometimes when people are facing financial problems, the relationship end up breaking up. At the end of the day, that relationship is being tested, and you don't have to break up with somebody. All you got to do is look at each other and say, "We've got each other," and just find a way. But normally, it's men that are annoying when things go wrong, men, if for some reason they think they should man up, they think they should be the savior of this world, where I should provide for my family. Why shouldn't I be able to provide? I've seen people where they are married and then the relationship falls apart, and then when you ask the guy, he feels like he is let down in his family. So I'm thinking but his problems show up. You don't ask for them. So why would you blame yourself? So I normally see you guys come out. men that end up the relationship. Like you find, I hear girls are like, wow, since he lost his job, he's never the same. Since I would just go to the beach and drive to the beach, because that time come out, it never comes back. The next thing what you need to do, you have to sort out the CV, you have to start applying for a job. Before you know it, you get interviews and you get another job, but you do not get your health back. Once your health is damaged, it is damaged. For me, if my spouse was to lose his job, if we have food to eat, I will want him to go to the beach. Maybe do his CV next to the beach, because you don't get it. Our lives is being tested each and every single day. So there is no such thing as I feel I've let down my family. I feel that it's a team. So that's how I see it. I don't know. Maybe I meditate too much. Maybe I pray too much. I don't know. But for me, how I see it, I see that when problems appear in a relationship, those chains, they are not being contributed by one person. It's just two, it takes two to tango, and it takes two partnership to actually go through it, climb the mountain, and go to the other side where you find yourself, find that breakthrough. So if there's any many guys that are watching this channel or you're watching it later, please, whenever you're presented with a problem in your relationship, whether it's family problems, whether at work, never blame yourself. When you come to a place of blaming yourself, wanting to carry the burden and blaming and thinking, well, I should be a man, I should provide for my family. But guess what? Problems do come. And maybe that problem when you lose a job, maybe it's God is saying, I have better plans for you. Apply for a better one. And when you go into that depression, you wouldn't be able to find that breakthrough. So there's so many things that you can do when you go through challenges in a relationship in order to break these chains. And some people, they like to be in control. Sometimes men, they like to be in control. It makes them feel good when when they walk into the house, they look at their children, the food is on the table and everything. They like to be in control of the universe or the situation, but that's not how life works. So whenever you find yourself, don't chain yourself to mindset. Don't chain yourself to memory. Don't chain yourself to panic. Don't chain yourself to trust. Don't chain yourself to to unforgiveness. I am chained to mindset. I am chained to memory. I am chained to panic. I'm panicking. I'm thinking I'm not a man, a woman. I'm not able to provide for my family. I feel like a failure. I cannot provide for my husband or whatever that is. I'm struggling to forgive myself. Guess what? Let it go. Just find that breakthrough by finding a solution. If you can control something, you can control it. But if you can't, I just say move on, dance your own song and find a solution together. Whether it's family, whether it's the intimacy relationship, just break the chains. What do you think, Kamal?
I'm just about to say something here. It's that part where you're talking about control and what we want to control. As human beings, we have a tendency to want to control everything in life. We plan things, we decide things, and if it doesn't go according to plan,
Scream!
right, it's the end of the world. And it's, in fact, it's not the end of the world. It's just a small thing that happened. And that brings us to the part where we the self-love part, right? The self-care part. In when it comes to relationships and relationship patterns, right? Or painful relationship patterns, it's important to understand if it's a pattern means it's repetitive. And if it's repetitive, it means that there is a trigger point. And with trigger points, there's always a healthy way to get out of these trigger points, to not, I'm not going to say to numb these triggers, but to reduce the triggers to a point where one can handle proper relationships. Now, self-awareness and acknowledgement of these patterns is the first step into breaking that cycle. Being able to understand what you can control and can't control is also part of the process. When you understand, like when you have an awareness or self-awareness and you acknowledge, right, acceptance of a situation, you realize that, okay, well then that means you're not growing. You're just repeating the same thing and again and again and again. And what was it that Einstein said? He said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and believing there will be a different outcome. And this is exactly what you're doing. You are going into a pattern of insanity, which is unfair to say that you're insane as a human being if you are in an unhealthy relationship pattern, because there is a cause. And so if there is a cause, there is a trauma. If there is a trauma, you need help. And the only way to seek that help is to realize that you're in that pattern. And before you realize that, there's nothing that we can do, we can say, or anybody can do to help you out. So awareness and acknowledgement of the situation. Understanding where the root cause of that pattern exists. So I'm talking about, sorry, I lost my thread of thought here. The root cause, understanding how that healthy pattern came to be, right, where it stems from. Probably from a past experience. It could be from a parent. It can be a different trauma. Usually these causes are a traumatic experience that created a learned behavior. A learned behavior means something that you can change, right? So when you get to understand these, the reason or the cause behind the pattern that you're in, you can find an easier and simpler solution to, I'm not going to say let it go, get over it, and that understanding, in a sense, tells you why you act in that way, right? And this is why that behavior feels natural for you when you are in that abusive relationship, for instance. It's a natural process for you. It's a natural behavior. And so you don't see it as unhealthy. However, understanding, being aware, and recognizing that pattern will allow you to move forward and expand yourself into being able to grow. The other part is, once you understand, you are aware of it, you need to, the best process after that is, as I mentioned in the beginning, is understanding the trigger. What triggers that unhealthy behavior that you have? And it can be anything from emotional, situational, environmental, or actually just some people. Some people trigger us for something. And when you recognize the triggers that you have about situations, people, or emotions, you are capable of, I'm not going to say remove them completely. I'm going to say reduce their threshold on you. And that helps you grow. And once you've done that process, now is time for you to go through the steps of how you can reach a healthy place where you can communicate better your needs, your boundaries, because often unhealthy relationship patterns, they stem from also communication as always. Communication is key to everything in any relationship. And it always comes back to communication. And so the communication patterns are poor from your end, and they are poor from the other person's end. for different reasons, obviously. Um, and that's, I mean, when I'm talking about communication patterns, I'm talking about the lack of um, emotional openness. It stems from also passive aggressive behaviors. Um, it also comes from the inability to listen. Now, communication people always usually think it's about understanding each other and being able to know when to speak. Communication is about listening and understanding. Communication is about paying attention to what is being said without the thought of wanting to interrupt or interfere or answer or solve what is being said to you. Your job as an effective communicator, when somebody is speaking with you, talking with you, discussing something or sharing something, your job is to listen carefully, hear what they have to say without judgment, hear how they say things without judgment, hear things if you have to disassociate from your personal being to be an objective viewer. Effective communication starts with being very objective to what is being said to you. Not to answer, not to interrupt, not to find a solution, but only to listen. And that's where the patterns can start to end. I mean, there are different solutions, obviously, on how to end these patterns, but I'll pass over the mic to you, Nomsa, so that I'm sure you have a few opinions and a few things to share based on what I shared right now.
Um, I like it, Kamal, when you talk about you mentioned the self-awareness, you mentioned triggers, identify the triggers, and it's very, very important to be aware of who you are as a person. Like myself, whenever I'm in a situation, I always stop, be in the present moment, and if I have to respond to the situation, I have to think about the other person, how it is going to make them feel. And at the same time, I have to ask myself, well, if I tell this person what they want to hear, how is that going to make me feel at the same time? And then I have to listen, and then I have to answer honestly everything. I have to be honest. And also, you mentioned communication. Communication in a relationship is the critical component of everything. I've noticed with my family, because I work, and I work with it where you have to give a handover, you have to give somebody communicate. Always people have to know what they're doing. Or you can't just get carried away, no communication with somebody. I've noticed with my family, every time something happen, I'll keep them up to date. I keep them up to date. I keep them up to date. But then the mindset, because they didn't realize when I'm keeping them up to date, what is happening is I'm getting them involved into the situation, so they don't left behind. So, and then my spouse went one day, he was like, Nomsa, could you please stop texting people? Like, because sometimes it could be sometimes with his dad, and then updating him and everyone else. So I said to him, no, you guys have all misunderstood everything. I was like, I'm not a person who likes to get carried away and solve a problem, leaving other people behind. I'm a person who solve the problems. And then when I solve the problem, the other person that is not there, they need to be updated what has gone on. So the mindset, the whole thing, they didn't get it. So now he's like, okay, he was like, but when you solve something, what's the point of telling somebody? I was like, you don't understand. When you are in a relationship with somebody, you have to value them. I went, and the reason why I ended up with this attitude that my stepdaddy died. When my stepdaddy died, my mom, I took over everything to look after my family. And I updated with my mom everything. But when I went home, my sister were talking, but she didn't know what was going on with everything, the life. And I could see in her eyes that she wants to be part of life. She wants to get involved. So, and then she actually opened up about me being there and looking after them, how it threatened them. And I said, how do you feel threatened by me looking after you guys? She said, Nomsa, when you do everything, it's fine, it's beautiful, but sometimes it makes you wonder whether are you in control anymore or you are not in control. And I was so happy that my sister, she's opening up with me. And since that day, I think that was 10 years ago, everything that I do come out, even at home, even with my children, I have to update them with everything. But my oldest daughter, because she's smart, she's the one that is getting it. And everybody else at the time, they were not getting it. They were like, so what's the point of doing something? I was like, it means that I value you. When I come and tell you something, even if I solved it, even if it is gone, it means that I value you. You'll be able, when you are in the communication, you'll be able to get involved and say, oh, Nomsa told me that, Nomsa told me that. But when I'm getting carried away, like with the Hope Spring Eternal Introduction Agency, Ngozi talk shows, I'm like, it's my company. I just have to do everything myself. It doesn't matter this one. But communication, guys, is very, very important. It destroys relationship, and also listening as well is very, very important. What Kamal has said, acknowledging the situation and acknowledging people, listen and listen and listen, and also having boundaries is very, very, very important. And also asking questions. I like to ask the questions myself. At home, they call me nosy. They say, wow, what is she going to ask now? The moment I open my mouth, they're like, what is she going to ask? But and also is getting to know someone, what the things that they love or what they are up to. And if I go to church, I ask people questions. So what have you been up to? And they look at me and they're like, are you here to interrogate me now? So I'm like, no, I just want to know what you got up to. Because sometimes, like things that happen, come out, you hang out with somebody and then they go through something and then you're like, I didn't know. How come I didn't know that? It means somehow we don't communicate properly. And those are the things that I have learned the hard way. It's like my spouse was telling me that his friend is split up with his ex, and now he's not coping properly. And I said to him, he needs to talk, he needs to go for counseling. And he's looking at me like, man, going for counseling. I was like, yeah, he needs to go for counseling. And he was like, I'm not sure about that. We men don't deal with the situation like you guys do. So it's like, yes, he needs to go for counseling. I was like, but with me, we talk. But then if you split up with somebody, you don't have to be strong. And he was like, oh, wow, I grew up. My mom used to tell me to man up. If I share my feelings, that means I'm being weak. So I was like, I don't think that's what she meant.
Look,
I
I'm gonna say it very frankly. I grew up with a mom that told me, "Pull your socks up, be a man," and all of that. But she didn't mean it about my emotions.
no,
She
no.
meant
I
it.
think many get it wrong. That's
See,
where they cut you.
a lot of people get it wrong. But however, we have to say that we have to acknowledge that a lot of men nowadays, for the past, I think, about 10 years, have started to stand up, to actually man up
Yeah,
and see therapists
yeah.
and talk to coaches and talk about their emotions and express them. It's it has, I'm not going to say it's become a trend, but I'm going to say it is going in the correct direction of what it means to man up. Um, it's important to acknowledge as well that, I mean, we can give not advice, but we can give you methods for you to break these patterns. One of the most important methods of all is actually seeking help from a trained psychologist, so that you can talk about these emotions and understand better. Because a trained psychologist will tell you, will help you figure out these triggers and figure out everything that needs to be done. That's the first part of self-growth. This is your well-being stage. Now, after that, if you want to go through the process of self-development, that takes another step. Now, speaking of men that are manning up actually and going and seeing therapists, it is becoming a lot more available and a lot more acceptable in society. It has been now for the past at least 10, 15 years, except not all cultures. Some people are still in that, and I'm going to say it in a very controversial way, in that backwards thinking mind that no, you don't go to therapy. There are still plenty of countries that see going to therapy or going to a coach or going to a psychiatrist if they need like deep psychological help, that it is taboo, that it is unhealthy. It is not. For those of you that are listening from countries that still don't accept talking about your emotions and sharing them with your partners, sharing them with your children, sharing them with your with a therapist to help you express them in a better way, you are completely delusional. It is one of the healthiest things in life for your well-being and your self-development to be able to express your emotions in a healthy way. Your kids will love you for it. Your partner will adore you for it. And I'm talking specifically to the men now. And your family will fall even more in love with you. It is a huge life changer to be able to express yourself with emotions. I mean, look, I'm Mediterranean. I'm half French, half Egyptian, and plenty of more cultures in my family. That means I grew up with people that are close, that are loving, that express themselves. We know how to express our emotions, and still, a lot of these countries, the men are taught to man up and not show their emotions. However, they do show it, but differently. Now, I grew up understanding more my emotions. Of course, when I grew older, I understood my emotions better. I understood my behaviors, and I went to a psychologist, and I went through the process of being life coached. I went through the process of my own self-education in order to understand how I behave so that I can behave in a healthy way towards my children and my loved ones. So now I express myself fully, without shame, without anger, without regret, and I say things as honestly as possible without harming the people in front of me, because this is how I feel it should be said. I'm not saying I don't get angry with my kids. Yes, I do get angry. I can yell at them. Here's what happens. I raise my voice a little bit, and then I look at them and I say, I'm sorry I yelled at you, but I'm a little bit disappointed. And then I express what I have to express, whether it's disappointment, whether it's being upset, whether it's even being angry. So there are ways and methods to express yourself. Now, another method that I would suggest for those of you that are open to exploring something beyond the norm of Western society, and that is the difficult part. It comes from the Orient or the Eastern culture, and it is something called I think it's called non-attachment. To make it simpler, it's the process of, it's a philosophy and it's a concept of being non-attached to anything or anyone. You're still loving people, loving everything that is around you, but you're not clinging, you're not controlling, and you have no fear of loss. It doesn't mean you're detaching from people completely. It simply means that you appreciate the relationship that you're in. You appreciate who they are without imposing expectations based on your personal needs, or actually insecurities, as a matter of fact. Non-attachment is a philosophy or a concept that it's not easy to handle, because it goes against every fiber of your being. You want to own this. This is mine. This is mine. You are not doing things the way that I want them to do. It's about control, and letting go of that control, saying that you will act the way that you act. I have no expectations. It's difficult for Western society. So I think this is my probably the last not comment, but the last I'm stuck here. The last method that I can give you, which can be a little bit controversial and a little bit unheard of, or a little bit difficult to handle, but it's a very interesting perspective. You still love people, you still love who they are. However, there is no attachment to the control, to the insecurities that you have, or the expectations that you may have of them. You're basically letting people live the way that they want to live and accept these things without feeling hurt. Not easy, but it's a different perspective.
Come on, I've been doing that for 10 years. It's not easy. Honestly, it's not easy. When the crazy comes, let it crazy be. But sometimes you do things and you think people they're not watching. My daughter the other day, the 17-year-old one, we're talking. I was like, why don't you clean your room? She goes, Mommy, I'll clean it when I'm ready. I was like, but your dad, you just clean it, you get up. She goes, but my dad is different. You let me be. But my dad, imagine if I couldn't clean the room, he would just go mad. But you accept me for me because that's what you do with people. So then I look at myself, I was like, I'm thinking that my children are not watching, but they're actually watching my character. And it is the character that when I go into personal development, I felt so relieved when I let everything go when I was going through healing. And then I made a decision. I was like, I'm no longer going to control the situation. If somebody enters my life, they're crazy, I watch the crazy unfold. I let people be. If somebody enters my life, they want to be who they want to be. My job is to cheer them up and be there for them, not me wanting them to please me or to do the things that I want. And it's not an easy attitude, but once you get used to it, it becomes fun actually. It becomes really fun, really, really fun and joyful as well. It brings joy to your life as well because you're no longer holding energies because people are energy. They come in with their energy, and if you try to control the situation, you end up controlling their energy as well. And if it's heavy, you end up carrying that heaviness. So just let it go. That's why this topic is very, very important. Boundaries as well, set boundaries. And once you set boundaries, they have principles in your life that you live by, and let the life unfold. And also, I would like to leave you guys with this. Breaking the chains is very, very, very important. Living the old life, a choice that became a habit, like similar to what Kamal was saying. I hate myself for the choices I have made. Break all that. It's not worth it to hold on. I could not forgive those who hurt me in the past. Let it go. I couldn't forgive those those who were not there for me. Let it go. When I walk in the room, I see what's wrong. Those are the side effects. of whatever the chains, when the chains are in, and this becomes your identity. You don't want really to be your identity. And then you end up pushing everyone away because of who had you back then. And then sometimes you find yourself being dragged around by everyone's decision because of not breaking the chains. And then you end up saying, wow, no one wants to be with me. I can't find love, or I cannot hang out with family or anybody. Just live the life. You break the chains, and those who want to hang out with you gracefully, they will hang out with you. And those who wants to be around, they will be around. A relationship, intimacy wise, if it's not working, let it go. At work, if work is not working, don't worry about the bills manning up and everything. No one will want their spouse to get into depression because they have to stay in order to pay the bills. It does not work like that. But anyway, in the real world, that's how we make decisions. And guys, if you want coaching, and if you watch this video and you feel like, wow, I need to connect with Kamal, Kamal is on social media. Send him a message, or you can send him a message through me as well. You can connect with me. I'm on social media and the website www.hseia.com. And just get in touch with me, and live with grace, everyone, and God bless.